400,000 children in the Democratic Republic of Congo could die of hunger. UNICEF says the international community must take action now, but the country's peppered with armed conflicts, and that means a substantial aid effort is difficult. So, what can be done to save these children? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Peter Dobby. Armed conflicts continue to have devastating consequences for the children of Kasai in the Democratic Republic of Congo. UNICEF says around 400,000 children are facing the imminent threat of death from starvation, and that number will, quote, skyrocket if urgent actions not taken to boost the humanitarian response. The agency wants $88 million to fund its programs there. Now, in December, the UN declared the crisis at the highest level. That's the same as Yemen, Syria and Iraq. The Kasai region descended into violence in 2016 over a power dispute between a local chief and government authorities. There's also been fighting between anti-government groups and forces loyal to the President, Joseph Kabila, who failed to step down in 2016 when his last term in office officially came to an end. Let's have a quick look at what the report also found. More than 2 million children are in need of humanitarian assistance. At least 440,000 children were unable to finish their school year last year. 500 schools were attacked, used for military purposes or destroyed. 60% of the region's militia are children, with thousands recruited into the armed groups. More than 200 health centres were looted, burnt or destroyed.
We have now children coming back from the bush after months of violence in a very bad nutritional situation. We think that 770,000 children suffer from acute malnutrition, including 400,000 children who suffer from severe acute malnutrition. A child suffering from severe acute malnutrition is a child who might die at any time. It's very, very fragile. These are not new numbers, but it's extremely serious to see that the funds are not here.
OK, let's get going. Let's bring in our guests. Joining us from London, Okito Tongomo, President of the Congolese Support Group in the UK. Out of Goma, we're going to be joined by Fidel Bafilemba, an independent consultant on the Democratic Republic of Congo's affairs. Also in London, Alex Vines, head of the Africa programme at Chatham House. Welcome to you all. Okito, coming to you first. Why is this happening in your country?
Thank you very much, Peter. The situation is well known. It's due to the weakness of the regime. Speaking now, the Congolese peoples are abandoned to themselves. Nobody is there to look after them. The current regime is excessively very weak. It's not helping anyone, and the peoples are in a dangerous situation. It's been there for more than 20 years. We see people being in that situation. The situation is going to carry on because of the weakness of the regime.
Alex Vines in London, 1 million people have been forced from their homes. Just give us a sense of where they've gone, and is that situation sustainable?
Well, the majority have been internally displaced inside parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and there's a displacement figure of over 4 million people have been moving around. This is one of the big tragedies globally, not just about the Democratic Republic of Congo. And there are a number of different conflicts that have been taking place in the Kasai regions and in the Kivu regions in particular. It is cyclical, unfortunately, and it does tie up to the previous speaker. One of the reasons for this is that the government in the Democratic Republic of Congo is a weak government, which has actually prospered from weakness and insecurity. These conflicts actually feed in to a logic of maintaining the current president in power, Joseph Kabila Jr. And he has used crisis several times to postpone elections and to justify his continued incumbency. The basic point to all of this is that this is a human crisis. This is not from a natural disaster, and there is a political solution to this.
Fidel Bafilemba in Goma, the UNICEF is asking for $88 million. Is that actually enough?
Well, nothing will ever be enough to meet the humanitarian needs in this country, which has been destroyed for decades now. But any drop within this ocean of needs, I think it's a step forward, and it's needed.
Akito Tongomo in London, the government actually boycotted one of the more recent aid donor conferences. On the face of it, that would seem quite illogical. Why do you think they chose to go down that road?
It's an extremely good question, Peter. I really appreciate, especially to hear all the comments from all my colleagues. It's really situation in the Congo is mainly due to the weakness of the government. In addition to this, we have to add on that because whenever we see a credible regime, we see more than 4 million people, just going back to what Alex has said. This is a humanitarian crisis. It's not acceptable in our planet to see such thing happening nowadays. And the regime is refusing assistance just because they want clapping the power illegally, which they're already doing at the moment. So my understanding is the situation is just is being done by the regime in a way that they try to minimize the actual gravity of what is happening to people's life. And the only way we can understand what the government is doing now is by saying that there is an illegal government, is illegitimate government, and they cannot express themselves freely to convince people why they are there. The only way they're going to try to hide whatever they're doing. But let me add on that one. Apart from talking about 4 million people where we see being forced to displace the house, we got a lot of things that happened in the past. We got a mass grave, which is still there in the Congo. We got abduction of human rights and the people going to Congo try to assist the people in a difficult situation. More recently, we got history what happened in Virunga Park. 2 British people being kidnapped, while the lady who was there working as a guard was killed in their presence. We got a history of a dramatic situation in the Congo at the moment. All this is the government ignoring to accept the value of the constitution.
Alex Vines in London, 60% of the various militia groups are made up of children. I mean, that's according to the United Nations. It's not according to us here at Al Jazeera. But there has been a lessening of the level of violence, the level of the conflict. Within that lessening, is there anything that can be built on? Is there any positive in there at all?
Well, yes, the lessening of the crisis at the moment, the conflict, especially in the Kasai regions, is really important because it opens up an opportunity for humanitarian access. And the figures and reports coming out is that access is improving. And so international development partners, international NGOs can start going in and providing assistance both to children and displaced. And also there is returnees taking place. So we've talked about that 4.3 million displacement. There are now people returning. But to make this sustainable, we do need a political solution to the Congo. As I've said, this is cyclical. I mean, credit to you at Al Jazeera that you over the last decade have been consistently reporting on the DRC Congo, but many other media outlets only will draw attention to it when there is an announcement like UNICEF of a major humanitarian crisis. The solution is to have a credible election and move politics forward. There have been planned elections postponed several times now since 2016, and we've still got to see whether there's going to be an election in Congo in December this year. The president of the Congo is not a strong man. He's a weak president compared with some of his neighbors, but he has been very wily and able to constantly postpone elections. And so the humanitarian response needs to be coupled with a political one.
Fidel Bafilemba in Goma, in this area we're talking about, the government has managed to regain control, but not convincingly enough to take that lessened level of violence, that lowered level of violence, to no violence at all. Why is that?
Well, I think the lessening of violence can be debated because there has been pockets of violence almost everywhere. Yes, maybe it's lessening in Kasai, but in the Kivus it's still quite high. We hearing of the ADF Nalu who are kidnapping, killing, butchering people in the Virunga Park. That the same next to the Virunga. Another entity called the Wito, people are killing each other and so forth. And very recently, 2 days ago only, we had a community, of Hutu, Congolese Hutu, claiming petitioning of a North Kivu province, which has been vehemently rejected by others, and which is likely to raise again more, to trigger more violence even, setting communities or ethnic groups against others. So I think, as my predecessors have put it, this is in the line of Kabila keeping in office himself, because that's the only way he can keep safe all the plundering, the pillaging he has been doing of the Congo assets, but also to get, shelter in terms of prosecution and so forth that he's fearing that he could be caught with if he ever leaves power.
Akita Tongomo in London, for you or the people you talk to, does Mr. Kabila have any credibility at all when he refused to step down in 2016?
Excellent, very good question again, Peter. I just will add on more things on that question again. Let me mention this clearly. I don't see anyone in the planet who will see the value of the Constitution being put on hold like Kabila is doing in a very fragile regime and a fragile institution in Congo. We want to build a nation that have to have a stability in the region. Congo's got strong impact in our society and in our planet. The issue of Congo need an emergency solution, a completely a failing state as a result of Mr. Kabila breaching the Constitution and forcing himself to be president. There's a need for an emergency assistance to Congolese people at the moment. There's no one in the planet who will observe what is happening in Congo. Congo become an emergency situation. And I will add on that one question just to make it clear to the international community, which I believe is have a strong impact on the situation. Lives of people have to be looked in a different way. We have to see an emergency solution now, which is my proposal, will be to use a more serious tone from an international obligation. Probably the best one will be the use of force to remove Mr. Kabila by force. We have seen this happen in different countries. There's no way we're going to see someone, because I totally against when there was some report, people believe that Kabila tried to get some part of the country. Kabila is totally the most weakest president. He lost completely the country. Congo is a lost country at the moment. It's a lost state. There's nothing functional. All the institutions are illegal, all due by Mr. Kabila forcing himself to be president. We have to rebuild an accountable nation where we have to see people's lives be protected. All the result of the current situation is due to the weakness of Mr. Kabila, is a refusal to accept the value of the Constitution and to make the stability of the country. We see the outcome, people being killed, 4 million being forced to displace from the house. We see young people being abducted. We see politicians abducted. We got a track record in corruption. We have seen all scenario that emergency situation have to be up and now.
Okay.
Congolese people need assistance.
I just want to pause for a second, gentlemen, because I just want to recap on how we got to where we are today. Well, the Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC, it achieved independence from Belgium in 1960. Since then, the country suffered 2 civil wars and violent conflicts. In 1997, rebels backed by Rwanda captured the capital, Kinshasa, and ousted the president, Mobutu Sese Seko. Zaire was renamed the Democratic Republic of Congo. Laurent Désiré Kabila became the president. A year later, in what was known as the Second Congo War, rebels backed by Rwanda and Uganda rose up against Kabila. Zimbabwe, Namibia and Angola sent troops to repel them, but the rebels took control of much of the east of DRC. The 6 African countries involved in the war signed a ceasefire accord in Lusaka, Zimbabwe, in 1999. 1 year later, the UN Security Council authorized a 5,500-strong force to monitor the ceasefire, but the fighting continued. In 2002, the Congolese government, rebels and opposition parties signed a peace agreement in South Africa to end 4 years of civil war and set up a transitional government. In 2006, Kabila's son Joseph was declared the winner of the country's first democratic elections. In 2015, he extended his term in office, prompting severe unrest. Alex, can I just come to you with my next point? Is this a confection of people who are now feeling frustrated and resentful, the ordinary people of the country, because they cannot see their desires being addressed at all? Look,
there have been massive demonstrations in Kinshasa The faith groups, particularly the churches, have been very strong also in their statements that there needs to be elections and political change. I think one of the mistakes we are making is assuming that Mr. Kabila Jr. is completely in control of his own destiny. He isn't a strong man in the way that we might see in some of the neighbouring states like Uganda with Mr. Museveni or Mr. Kagame of Rwanda. So Kabila Jr. also relies on support of an elite of other people inside Kinshasa. And one of the problems, I think, is that that political elite hasn't been able to work out consensus on who they would wish to succeed Mr. Kabila. And hence that's part of the problem here too. This is about an elite reaching a consensus. And hence we have this drift. But it's very serious now because we have a massive humanitarian crisis that is man-made. It's a human crisis. And then Congo has other massive challenges. It's got weak institutions, but we've also just heard that there's been yet another outbreak of Ebola, for example, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. All of these indicate that we need a credible government in Kinshasa that is more developmentally focused, and that just isn't there at the moment.
Fidel Bafilemba in Goma, do the Western countries just simply acquiesce in the face of Mr. Kabila and what he continually now, it would appear, wants to do? Why do the West look the other way?
Well, I think it makes more sense when you see the Western investment in mining, like in Kolwezi, Katanga, which is the economic hub of the DRC. It's billions and billions of dollars that have been invested. And though there has been a change or review within the new mining code, but I think Kabila, the under-table agreement that he has signed with these international companies is his guarantee to stay in power. And they can sell us stories, that will place the opinion, the public opinion, but actually we're not seeing a strong commitment from the West to do anything. And anyway, I'm not blaming them because at the end of the day, it's going to be upon the Congolese people themselves to stand up for their fate and not the international community. That said, we have MONUSCO here, the UN peacekeeping force, which is by its size the largest UN peacekeeping mission on this planet. But it's been 17 years now. Those folks, they had been on the ground, but still nothing is changing. So I equate the UN peacekeeping forces to the Congolese army useless.
Okita Tungomo, Alex in London there, I think, was referring to the deal, historically, the deal that was brokered by the Roman Catholic Church. Are there any bones of that deal that are salvageable, that could be turned round and used in a positive sense?
It sounded very complex in the way that the Catholic Church worked extremely hard to make some agreement when there was a difficult situation on the ground. But the only issue which I have to insist and I keep on repeating on that is just the refusal to accept on any plan that was put in place to have stability in Congo. I do agree with all my other colleagues who mentioned a number of issues which rely to why the situation is chaotic and more dangerous, and that we are expecting some credible assistance and emergency situation to be called out to help Congolese people. We talking here for people's life, Peter. We got a history and a generation of a breach of the constitution and the law by Mr. Kabila since 2016, at the end of his term in office. And the Catholic did give an agreement, which was very simple for him to have in a year just to plan and to organize the election. The reason behind that, because there was a financial implication to organize a credible election. So we see the outcome of that. Mr. Kabila is refusing to make anything work at the moment in Congo. And until now, I totally disagree that the elite in Congo don't have anyone to represent Mr. Kabila. It's just the position, the government and the regime. They see themselves very weak. They don't have anyone who can be elected by Congolese people at the moment. They have destroyed the whole country, and they are now refusing to see the stability and the future of the country moving on. So that's what the outcome we see now. They're using force and they're posing people, Kabila, there, and they kill anyone who try to speak about the freedom and probably the respect of the value of the Constitution.
Okay.
We are calling for different strategies.
We're coming towards the end of the programme, Akito, so I just want to get to a last couple of few points with our other guests. Alex Vines in London. There are elections scheduled for later this year. In your heart of hearts, do you think those elections will happen? And if they do happen, in the run-up to them happening, will we see more or less violence?
So there are a number of countries that really do care of what's happening in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Angola is one of them, and it has intervened in the past. The pressure is growing. It is growing very significantly on that there should be elections, because the view in Luanda is that we can't continue in Congo in the way that we're seeing at the moment. It is undermining stability. So I do think that we are coming into an endgame process now. What we're seeing at the moment is not sustainable long term, and I don't believe that Mr. Kabila will remain in power for yet another 2 years with a delayed election. So we are coming up to crunch point.
Fidel, for you, can an election lead to a solution in a country that I guess is defined by corruption, defined by civil war, and defined by a leader who's got enough leverage somehow to keep himself in place?
Well, it would be very bold to say that elections are going to bring stability or sustainable stability in this country. However, I think all people need is to have a chance, to be given a chance where they can fend for themselves. They can start working. They can start traveling freely and so forth. So set the fundamental, the basis for development. That's what people need. However, there's still a lot of challenges in terms of governance, corruption, insecurity that needs to be cleared, and that's not something that's going to be ended within 5 or so years to come.
Akito Tongomo in London, there was a lot of hope at one point pinned to the youth protest movement. Where have those voices now gone, particularly in the run-up to probable elections at the end of this year?
Thank you. I think they're still there, but do you know the use of force and intimidation, especially brutal killing of them? We still got one of them still not being buried, Rossi Mukendi, who I believe the family will bury him very soon because the regime killed him publicly. We see the outcome of a barbaric regime by giving people the chance to express themselves. We need to have a stable nation. We need to have a very credible Congo. This is a country that will give a hope for the rest of the planet. We got a number of issues that Congo have to play. There's a humanitarian crisis in Congo, which is a permanent. There has been a long history of a breach of law and the use of force by the regime. And all this is what is happening now as an outcome of the situation. All those movements, they're still there. And let me mention that all the young people in the Congo, they're expecting to see the change of regime. We want to see an accountable regime. Congo's got a big role to play in our planet. The only obstacle we have at the moment is Mr. Kabila and the regime. To see the change of regime,
we're out of time. I'm very sorry.
Congo.
I am going to have to interrupt you there and bring our conversation to a close. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, though. Thank you to our guests, Akito Tongomo, Fidel Bafilemba and Alex Vines, and thank you to you too for your company. You can see the show again anytime on the website, aljazeera.com, and for further discussion, check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter, our handle @AJ Inside Story, or tweet me, I'll tweet you back. I'm @PeterDobby1. From me, Peter Dobby, and everyone on the team here in Doha, thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.